Yo, 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 what is up, y'all? It's Cone back here again tonight with another episode of After the Buzzer, the show where I recap the NBA games from the night. There are only two, which was kind of weird. I was kind of surprised when I checked tonight's schedule and saw there were only two. Whatever, I guess it happens, but there were two pretty anticipated games. Of course, you had the Nets Sixers game with Ben Simmons coming back to Philly. Warriors Nuggets is just a good matchup, and right now it is a playoff matchup. So there was a lot of things to be excited about going into these games. And of course, I am going to start off with talking about Nets Sixers because it's probably the one that most of you were anticipating. Everyone's kind of been thinking about it since the whole James Harden Ben Simmons trade. Ben Simmons making his return to Philadelphia, James Harden going up against the Nets for the first time since the deal. You even have Kevin Durant versus Joel Embiid. They got into it earlier this year. Kyrie Irving involved in the mix. You've got Seth Curry and Andre Drummond coming in, having revenge games of their own. Hell, even DeAndre Jordan going up against his old team along with Paul Millsap. There were a lot of things going on in this game, a lot of storylines, but of course, the Ben Simmons stuff kind of was the centerpiece coming into this one. But thankfully, that kind of took a backseat to the basketball, which I was excited about. Don't get me wrong, I love drama. I'm an NBA fan. If you're an NBA fan that isn't involved in all the drama and stuff, I'd be kind of surprised. The NBA kind of just has ways to be pettier than almost any other sports league. And so, of course, you've got Ben Simmons coming onto the court and getting rained down with boos from the Sixers fans. There was a hilarious moment actually in warm-ups and pregame where Ben Simmons dunked the ball, and it was like right in that spot where he didn't shoot against Trae Young, and all the Sixers fans went crazy, which was kind of hilarious. But I was excited to that it was kind of off to the side, like Ben Simmons being on the bench. They weren't going to boo him on the bench the entire game. They did boo a lot because that's what Philly fans were going to do. But this was a very playoff atmosphere game, and so I was excited to see some close basketball, maybe some back and forth moments. In the first quarter, Kevin Durant and Joel Embiid going at each other, talking back and forth. It was fun. I was really excited going into it, and for that first few minutes, it was awesome, and then the Nets completely took over, and it ended up turning into a blowout. Nets winning by almost 30 points, being up by 30 multiple times in this game, leading by 17 after the first quarter. And to be honest, to me, I think this game says a lot more about the Nets than it does about the Sixers. Of course, the Sixers had a terrible performance. James Harden was 1 of 10 in the first quarter, and he shot terribly over the course of the game. It was a very uncharacteristic game from him. He's been phenomenal since he got to Philly. This is his first loss in a 76ers uniform. Embiid was solid, but he really couldn't hit from the floor. They were doing a good job of hitting with different timely double teams. They're switching up the timing, the matchups that he was seeing, so really making it difficult. Of course, Embiid's he's going to get you to foul him. It's the way it works. He's just so good at drawing that contact, forcing referees to make those calls because he's so physical. And so he did shoot a lot of free throws. I think he shot like 19 in the first half, which is kind of insane. Most of those were fouls. There were a couple weird calls, like that one where he was like backing down Durant and kind of just like threw the ball backwards, like when mascots take those backwards half court shots. It was one of those. He got the call, so I guess it worked, but it was just a weird moment. So Embiid kind of was getting stuff done a little bit, of course, taking advantage of the real lack of a center that the Nets have outside of Andre Drummond. But Harden was really not there tonight, nor were many of the role players for the 76ers. A lot of them kind of were just missing shots that it feels like they typically hit. Like, I think the Sixers were shooting like 25% or something like that after the first half. And some of that does have to go to them just kind of missing shots, but a lot of credit does need to go to Brooklyn's defense. They played great defense. Kyrie Irving in particular was really good on James Harden. He had multiple times where his quick hands and his refusal to foul James Harden, that was one of the biggest things I noticed about Brooklyn was, while Embiid, he's physical, he's going to post you up, he's going to get into the paint and force you to foul him. He's just really, really good at that. James Harden, who is also pretty good at drawing contact, they just didn't give up those fouls, which I think was huge for them. If Harden got into the bonus early and maybe kind of found a rhythm, then he could have worked out of those shooting woes, but because they prevented him from really ever getting to the line to find that rhythm, they really kind of just stifled him playing offense immediately. So really impressive by the Brooklyn Nets. I think the Sixers are going to be fine. James Harden wasn't going to win every game as a 76er. It just wasn't realistic to happen. These games are going to happen. It was just a really impressive effort by the Nets, to be honest, and that's why I think it says a little bit more about the Brooklyn Nets coming into this hostile atmosphere, not just hostile, very hostile atmosphere, and getting not just a win, but a blowout win over a team they could face in the playoffs without Ben Simmons. It was huge, and They showed in this game a lot of the reasons why Ben Simmons could be a huge acquisition for them. Really, it was the shooting that killed the Sixers in this one. Kevin Durant, of course, went crazy. He was just hitting Kevin Durant shots, pull-up threes, mid-range is shooting over anyone like it was nobody's business. He had 25, 14, and 7 in this one. Kyrie Irving drilling threes as well. He had 22, including a 3 right at the halftime buzzer or right before. That really kind of just sunk all momentum that the Sixers had going for them. Seth Curry had a monster game in his return to Philly with 24 points, like I said, shooting and drilling a bunch of threes. It really didn't feel like they ever missed. Like, I know they did, but at the same time watching the game, I was starting to wonder if I had just imagined those misses. That's what kind of night it was for the Brooklyn Nets. And when you have a guy like Ben Simmons and you surround him with shooters like that, like Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Seth Curry, amongst others, it's going to be really tough to guard this Nets team. And they played great defense tonight. They're going to add a guy in Ben Simmons who can play great defense as well, both in the paint and on the perimeter. It's going to be huge. And so I think what this says about the Brooklyn Nets is they're scary. They really can give whatever team they face in that first round. They're going to be really scary in that matchup. Whether it's the Heat, the Bucks, the Sixers, whoever gets that 1 or 2 seed, they're going to come out of the play-in tournament, assuming they do make it out of it, which I would assume they would. But they're going to come out of there and they're going to give whatever top seed they face a really, really tough time. Throw in the fact that being the lower seed, they would have Kyrie 4 out of those 7 games due to the mandate thing. The Nets are going to be a really tough out in that first round. I would not be surprised if they went into that first series and took out whoever they face in that first round. When you have Kevin Durant, when you have Kyrie Irving, when you've got Ben Simmons coming in, and you just have a really solid team of role players, anything can happen. This Nets team could very well be one of the lowest seeds ever to go in and win a championship. It's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. I was just really impressed with what they did tonight going up against Philly. Like I said, this was a very playoff atmosphere type game. So to go in there and beat this team, not just beat them, but like destroy them, it was super impressive. I was really impressed with what I saw from the Nets, to be honest. I've been kind of lower on the Nets as of recently, but games like this remind me just how good they can be when you have, just by having Kevin Durant, like the virtue of having a guy of that skill set, having Kyrie Irving who's been there in those big moments, just having those two guys as a duo really makes you super scary. You include all the role players, Seth Curry, Nick Claxton, by the way, I also want to give a shout out to. He was great tonight, played some great ball. Bruce Brown is a guy that I'm higher on than I think most people are. I love him as a role player specifically for this Nets team. So overall, just a really solid game. Patty Mills as well, solid player. They kind of have a little bit of everything with the shooting, the defense. I'm excited to see whatever series the Nets, whoever they face off against in that first round, Nets versus whoever is going to be the best series of that first round pretty easily, I would say. So shout to the Nets on that win. I think that's all I have to say about that game. Yeah. So moving on from that one, we did, of course, have the Golden State Warriors going up against the Denver Nuggets. And this game was much, much closer right up until the end when the Nuggets turned it over on like 4 straight possessions. The Nuggets, this was their 4th game in 5 nights, so it really showed in those final moments. They just seemed super fatigued. Rather than getting into their offense, they kind of were just trying to force things. Nikola Jokic specifically, he was great overall in this game, but right down the stretch in those last few moments, it kind of just seemed like he got super gassed. He was passing into some kind of lazy turnovers, which he doesn't normally do. He shot really poorly from 3. I think he was like 0 of 6 or like 0 of 7 from 3 in this one, so Warriors getting a pretty big win. Like I said, right now as the playoffs stand, this is a first round matchup, and this is one I would be super excited to see. Steph Curry, of course, going up against Nikola Jokic being the marquee matchup, but you've got fun matchups kind of surrounding it, especially if either Jamal Murray and or Michael Porter Jr. are back and healthy for this matchup. I think it could be a really fun one, so it's one that I would like to see. Shout out to James Wiseman, by the way. He didn't play in this one, but he just made his G League debut, rehabbing, getting better, so hopefully he's able to return to this team at some point soon. But the Warriors, this was really just a big Steph Curry game, 34, 9, and 3. He was really solid in this one. It was, especially in that third quarter, he had a lot of Steph moments where the momentum kind of started to swing the Denver Nuggets way, and Steph kind of just slammed the door. It really went back and forth up until the end. Jordan Poole at the end hitting 2 dagger threes to really close this one out, including one in the corner where he shot it and then kind of started walking back down the court like the second he let go of it. Very Curry-esque. You can tell that Steph has had a big influence on him. him playing with that level of confidence is huge for this Warriors team because I feel like Jordan Poole's ability to score is going to be huge for them. Klay Thompson hasn't quite been the player that they were hoping he would be when he came back. Of course, it's still very, very early, so I'm not expecting Klay to come out and be the Klay Thompson where he was like one of the best shooting guards in the league for years right out of the gate, but I do think he will get better with time. It's just, he's got to get there before the playoffs, but having a guy like Jordan Poole as insurance to be that second scorer next to Steph Curry if you need him to be is huge. Kavon Looney, phenomenal in this game. He should get like the game ball. He played great defense on Nikola Jokic, really locking up, grabbing some clutch rebounds, just big moments, being a presence in the paint. He was really, really impressive in this one. I have to, of course, give credit to Jonathan Kuminga as well. He was phenomenal. He's been great for them all season, to be honest. I think there's some stat like he's averaging like 16 or 17 like points per game when he plays 20 or more minutes. He's been phenomenal, and it's starting to look like maybe him falling to 7 was kind of an overreaction by some people. If you didn't know, for a while, Kuminga was seen as kind of like that like fourth guy behind. He was like, you had Suggs, you had Cade, you had Mobley, you had Green as like those 4, and then Kuminga was like that 5th guy. It was like those guys in the top 5, and then Kuminga kind of started to fall a little bit when like Barnes rose up and Giddey played pretty well. So Kuminga has been phenomenal for a guy who, especially a lot of people saw as kind of a more raw prospect who would maybe need some time. He's come into it immediately, and if his 3-point shot, the way that he was shooting it tonight, continues to stay steady, he's going to be super valuable to this Warriors team going down the stretch. So shout to him. Kuminga's been really, really impressive. Big win for the Warriors. This is one they really needed. Wiggins still can't hit a shot to save his life. I don't know what's going on with him. He's really got to turn it around, though, if they do want to make a deep playoff run. Being one of their all-stars, they really do rely and expect a lot from him. We'll see. Maybe it's, again, an effective Draymond Green, getting him easier touches with playmaking and stuff like that. Maybe he's kind of just out of rhythm, going through a funk. Whatever it is, he's got to kind of figure that out because this Warriors team can't go as far as they want to go if Wiggins is kind of currently playing like the way he's playing right now. So that's all I have to say about these games. Let me know what your thoughts were on both the Nets Sixers blowout and this Warriors Nuggets game. Thought it was pretty good. I wish Nets Sixers was a little bit closer. Would have been some fun drama down the stretch if that was like a 1 or 2 possession game. Whatever, it happens. Shout out to the Nets once again for stepping up to that big moment. Let me know what you thought about these in the comment section below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you all